знак глубокого уважения к вашей партии, Центральный комитет нашей партии поручил мне преподнести вашему съезду портрет нашего вождя, учителя великого Ленина.
As a token of deep respect to the Communist Party of Great Britain, the Central Committee instructed me to present this picture of Comrade Lenin to your Congress.
In 1977, in honor of the 60th anniversary of the Russian Revolution, the Soviet Union sent Kunaev of the Politburo, the highest-ranking Russian ever to attend a British Communist Party Congress.
So if we select Southern Africa and Ireland as our special responsibilities at this moment with declarations on Cyprus, the Middle East.
Communist parties around the world normally exchange fraternal greetings at their congresses. But the 60th anniversary of the Russian Revolution was a special occasion. It was an event the British wanted to honor, but the political committee, the British party's central leadership body, wished to avoid setting off the rows over relations with the Soviet Union that have dominated previous party congresses. A number of branches had submitted resolutions, some pro and some anti-Soviet.
So that's how we handle the questions of the world communist movement.
The next section is there's a resolution on the USSR, and you notice that it's very positive, right down to the last paragraph, and then it says, despite differences on some aspects of policy and practice, without actually indicating what those differences are.
Irene Brennan, a former nun and now a lecturer in philosophy, is chairman of the Arrangements Committee.
Is that agreed?
When you say accept, do you mean somebody would make a speech moving it, or?
Yes. Well, I was
okay.
proposing that it should be moved after the fraternal delegate.
I'm not sure that it's a good practice, by the way, to move resolutions of this character dealing with aspects of the international situation after the fraternal delegate has spoken. We usually try to avoid that because otherwise you get a position where they are influencing the actual decision on a resolution.
But this isn't normal. It's a sort of anniversary resolution, really. It's the 60th anniversary. Yeah, but it's the 60th anniversary. It's not intended as a...
A way, Jerry, of keeping the discussion on the British road from being broken into by emergency resolutions on international questions.
This was to be a critical Congress for the small British party. It was the climax of 9 months of heated debate on a new draft of its programme intended to unite the party after a decade of dissension, the British road to socialism.
Stuff on international questions.
The decision to draft a new program was taken at the turbulent Party Congress of 1975. The leadership had fended off the Stalinist hardliners' efforts to move the party closer to Moscow, but agreed to invite a Soviet delegate to the 1977 Party Congress. This would coincide with the 60th anniversary of the Russian Revolution, which the broad mass of the membership would want to celebrate. Even liberal Eurocommunists feel inspired by the revolution of 1917. Although they disapprove of what Stalin and his successors have made of it.
She tells me that she sent you a copy and me.
Yeah, well, that's in order.
The hardliners remained fiercely loyal to the Soviet Union. This first became a problem in 1968, when the leadership ended decades of unswerving loyalty to Moscow by condemning the invasion of Czechoslovakia. In the summer of 1977, the conflict came to a head, when some 600 pro-Soviet comrades broke away to form their own new Communist Party, in protest against the leadership's move towards Eurocommunism. The breakaway made the Russian response to the British party's invitation more significant. Sending Kunaev indicated that the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the CPSU, would stand by the old party and not switch its support to the new group. But with party numbers falling below 25,000, the need for unity behind the new program among the remaining comrades dominated the preparations for Congress. So the leadership wanted to keep the contentious issue of relations with the Soviet bloc out of the debates on the new draft.
Amendment 768 was overwhelmingly defeated. I now come to Amendment number 802. All those in favour of the amendment, please indicate.
On the floor of Congress, the leadership's strategies seemed to be working. The first day ended with votes on 2 amendments hostile to the new draft program. One sought to restrict the definition of the working class to industrial workers only. The other would confine the draft's key concept of a broad democratic alliance only to the struggle against monopolies.
All those against the Amendment 802, please indicate. Well, again, comrades, there were 50 voted for the amendment. There's an overwhelming majority against.
Meanwhile, the issue the leadership hoped to avoid was still under discussion backstage: relations with the Soviet Union, Resolution 72.
Resolution in the international section, isn't it?
That's right.
And it's the one which is proposed, is spoken to by the chairman in the form of lifting it from a branch resolution type thing, in speaking from the Congress, more or less a fraternal greetings to the Soviet delegation. I mean, that's the one, isn't it?
Resolution 72 was largely pro-Soviet. It had in it several potentially controversial phrases. It referred to the Soviet Union as the mightiest country in the socialist family. But it also said that the CPSU recognizes that each country will pursue its own road to socialism. To avoid challenge on these issues, the Arrangements Committee had met a week before Congress and decided to cut them from the resolution. But now, a week later, Vic Edisford, co-chairman of the committee, reports that he's been reconsidering the idea of dropping these phrases.
On this resolution, it's more of a congratulatory thing than a policy. It's not a policy question. It's not going in as a major debate of policy. So that's why I think we would be better leaving that resolution as it is and pushing it through. And I want to ask that we change our position on it.
You know, I feel quite strongly that to support this resolution really is to support or accept the position of the Soviet Union in saying that they do acknowledge the sovereignty of other communist parties and states. When we're talking about you don't want to hassle at the Congress, and it's to bring in a sort of a smooth run in the Congress around the 60th anniversary. I mean, in fact, the most likely you're going to get uproar anyway in the Congress is to try and push this through, and particularly because it's the 60th anniversary, I think it's an unprincipled way of doing it anyway. So I would move that we stick to our original position.
I would like to remind comrades myself, again, of the fact that the CPSU has publicly recognised last June, and again, just recently in Moscow, the right of parties to sovereignty. Now, years ago, we wouldn't have seen that sort of public statement coming out of the leadership. So I would think we ought to bear that in mind as well. But having made my intervention on that...
Why can't the chair just get up and say what it thinks? Why?
We'll put that resolution for adoption by acclamation, you see. We would be in a position of him asking the chairman to say, but the Congress Arrangements Committee or the Resolutions Committee has asked that this is amended.
Because this is after the fraternal delegates spoken.
No error of fact in it. One can interpret in one's own view the application of a situation.
If, as happened last weekend, when the majority was here, interpreted it in that light, don't you think the majority of Congress will do the same? And if we try and push this through the form it is now, I think that'd be an even worse thing to give the delegate from the CPSU, because there'll be a lot of wrangling and disagreement going on.
It's all very well saying it's a statement of fact that the Soviet Union holds that position, but we don't usually sort of glibly accept statement of facts by political leaders in this country, whether they're in government or other political parties. We look on their record and what they're doing in practice. And the repression that we've opposed in Czechoslovakia is greatly the responsibility of the intervention of the Soviet Union. And okay, if this committee goes back on its original...
Try to oppose it in some way. Well, you must act according to your conscience on that, I think. But now...
do you mean he should not oppose it when he goes back into the body of Congress?
In my personal view, he ought not to do that. He ought not to do it in the Congress. No, he ought not. But that's my personal view. And I mean, I don't think... if we like, we can vote and indicate what our attitude is to Phil on that. But even so, that's not, I don't think, can be seen as binding on him, except in a moral sense.
So can I just clear that point up? Decisions that we make here, we should abide by in Congress.
What I was saying was that it's usual practice for people to accept majority decision in committees. That's the usual practice. And my advice would be to accept the usual practice. But if Phil feels he cannot accept that advice, then it's up to him, and it's he must act on his conscience as to what he does about it.
It was raised the question of alternatives. Could we not just have a declaration from the chair in relation to the Soviet Union and the question of that?
Well, that determines how we take it.
Yeah, well, I would recommend...
determines how we
Can I propose then, if we don't... Yeah.
Now, can I ask for a vote? All those in favour of the resolution as it stands here in the document from Adelaide Branch, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those against? 2. Right, then the majority view and one abstention. So the majority view is, in fact, that we have this moved from the chair as it is. That means all other propositions will fall now that that one has been actually accepted. Comrades do understand that on this particular point. Fine. Well, thanks very much.
Nothing's been said new to what was at the earlier meeting, is it? Nothing's been said, and suddenly everyone's changed their vote.
And I think it's wrong that once you take a decision for them to go against it. You know, it's putting the heavy hand on us, isn't it? What's the point in us coming along last weekend? They're going to go and change every bloody thing, because it might cause this, might upset the Soviet Union. Jesus Christ. Remember the declarations that were made before the Soviet Union invaded them? Brezhnev's declarations, those meetings in Czechoslovakia. Oh yes, we're all for the, sovereignty. We're all for sovereignty. About 3 days later, buff, in them the tanks.
Yeah.
It's not the first time he's gone back in the declaration they've made. So why should they be any different now?
I think you go according to your conscience, whether you...
No, I'm going to do it. I'm thinking the point I should do it. Should I challenge it when the question of a change in amendment? I should challenge it then first and foremost, wouldn't I?
Can you be credentials ready, please?
In the Congress, the debates on key issues in the British Road went on. One of the most outspoken, hardline critics of the new draft was Fergus Nicholson. In the debate on the state of the party, he argued that the threat to party unity came not from the hardliners, but from the Liberals pressing for more democracy inside the party itself.
Unfortunately, there's not just one splitting threat to the unity of our party, and not a million miles from the thinking of the amendment now in front of us are those who, far from regretting the 400 comrades who left us, are only too eager to drive out many, many more. First of all, those who take a line similar to that of the majority of communist parties in the international communist movement, rather than that of the dissident minority, and then anyone who prefers communism to Eurocommunism, and an extreme expression of this campaign, which is labelled against Stalinism, was a public attack at the Communist University of London this summer on the political committee of our party because some Soviet dissident had not been invited as a speaker. I would ask Congress to reject this amendment.
It now gives me very great pleasure to call upon the fraternal delegate from the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and a member of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet, and First Secretary of the Communist Party of Kyrgyzstan, Comrade Kunayev.
The debates were punctuated by fraternal greetings from 58 other communist parties. 9 had sent delegates to London, all of whom were given standing ovations. The 20-minute speech by the Russian Kunayev was notable in that among the usual sentiments was a statement of the very principle being debated backstage on Resolution 72.
Communist parties now work in most countries of the world in specific and diverse conditions. Each party defines its policy absolutely independently, and each seeks to master the whole of its experience and skill in order to apply in the best possible way the greatest revolutionary teaching of Marxism-Leninism in its country's specific situation. We have been watching with sincere interest and understanding the work you are doing here in Great Britain. Let the friendship between the people of our two countries grow from strength to strength. Long live Marxism-Leninism.
Many British comrades still look to Russia for inspiration, especially as the Bolsheviks helped found the British Party back in 1920. And the Russians still take a vital 12,000 copies a day of the party's newspaper, The Morning Star.
Dear comrades,
Позвольте мне передать от имени ЦК КПСС вашему 35-му съезду приветствие нашей партии.
may I, on behalf of the Central Committee of our party, to hand in messages of greetings from the Central Committee of the CPSU to your Congress.
Thank you, comrade. And I'm sure that the warmth with which you were received demonstrates the very warm feelings of the British communists and the British working people for the people of the Soviet Union. Success. We are now going to proceed with the debate on the role of the party and this will take into consideration also the debate on the relationship of the Communist Party to the Labour Party. My next speaker is Jai Jackson.
Can anyone tell me when they're going to move the resolution 72 on the World Communist Movement? No. It originally was going to be put after the USSR fraternal delegate. Now that's been changed. Do you know what the change is?
I haven't a clue, honestly. Vic and...
Who agreed to the change?
Well, nobody to my knowledge.
Unless they did the speakers.
Well, Vic is the chairman looking after the arrangement, so it signals...
No, he's doing speakers and arrangements. You're responsible for arrangements, aren't you?
No, we're just having resolutions, Phil.
You're doing resolutions?
Just resolutions, yeah.
Well, who's doing arrangements then? Because we're doing speakers.
Well, that's what I'd like to know. Because I'm annoyed too. If this is an attempt to stop it from being discussed, there's something wrong in that. As far as I'm aware, this should be discussed straight after the fraternal delegate. I got no knowledge of who... If it has been changed, I want to know who's done it, because it's only this committee that can change it.
Phil, I can't deal with you now. We're in the middle of this. It will be put to Congress, but we'll deal with that question when we finish sorting
Will you
out.
give me the assurance that it's not going to be put until we've discussed it?
Of course it's not going to be put until it's discussed in the committee. We've got a whole number of things in on it. We've got to discuss them, and it's not going to be put to Congress until they're discussed. And you ought to know that because you know how the committee works.
No, we originally said it would be put after the fraternal delegate.
Yes, but because there were a number of queries come in about it, and because we were unable to see, they'd only put them in this morning, and because we were unable to see them before the original scheduling of that resolution, then that resolution has been held back and will be discussed later. But it will be discussed.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
He's becoming a TV star now, Paul.
I've asked Iron British to give me assurances that it won't be put until it's been discussed on the resolutions committee. Now, what I'm concerned is that they're going to still try and push it through without being discussed. What I'm saying is, I'll be in that resolutions committee. If they put it, that people should get up and object, that assurance has been given to a member of the resolutions committee, and that no decision should be put on it at all. Nothing should be put on the matter until the resolutions committee, or at least a member of it, is put to Congress. Okay?
Yeah. Please accept the warm fraternal greetings of the French Communist Party and our wishes for all success to your work. Naturally, our two parties work out in complete independence their specific roads to socialism and the characteristics of the society that they propose their people should build.
Right, we'll tell you about
This is the 72 resolution.
I should...
We'll see you when we've time.
We'll send a slip out calling for you. That won't be put until it's discussed by the resolutions committee. And I will suggest that any common race that have got objections should be involved with the resolutions committee. And still...
Meetings outside here, please. We've got work to do.
And this is, in practice, a justification of the invasion of Czechoslovakia.
That is, plus we've got here the mightiest country in the socialist family, which puts the Soviet Union as the leading socialist state, and down here about resisting Cold War denigration of theory and practice. Well, Cold War denigration usually means attitudes on human rights, Eurocommunism and all that sort of thing. Now, if all that's going to be up for debate, well, that suits me fine. You can't go through like that.
We now come to the voting, and comrades, please remain seated and try not of any movement in Congress when the vote's taking place.
At the end of the debate on the second day, the Congress voted on 3 key amendments, again largely from the opponents of the draft's liberal positions. They sought drastic changes in the sections on the leading role of the party relations with the Labour Party, freedom of the press, and how capitalist rule is maintained. Again, the hardliners were defeated. Their last hope was the debate the following morning on pluralism, the final one on key themes in the British Road. The dispute on pluralism was part of the basic conflict in the party. The new draft guaranteed the future rights of opposition parties, including those hostile to socialism, to campaign, and promised for the first time in print that a socialist government would stand down if defeated at the polls. Hardliners reject this as hopelessly naive and aiding the sabotage of the socialist state. They advocate the pluralism of Eastern Europe, several parties, but none hostile to socialism. Their amendment would narrow the draft accordingly and had the backing of more branches than any other amendment.
In fact, it represents a development towards the idea of a state of the whole people without going through the heartache of the responsibility of state power. Comrades, I would ask you not to leave us in the wilderness of, at the present time of this particular draft. I would ask you to support the amendment.
George Bridges, to be followed by Ernest Hackett, to be followed by Reuben Folber.
It seems to me there's one thing we need to learn from this Congress and our experiences here, that it's time the debate moved on. Indeed, 10 years ago, this self-same amendment was debated and received just 10 votes. We've spent long enough, it seems to me, debating with the ghost of the party's past. Now we must start grappling with its future. Nevertheless, I'm going to take my contribution in talking about the concept of pluralism, because I feel it's got a central importance to the draft, and I think also it's at the heart of the differences in the world movement between those who see this concept as a bourgeois or revisionist heresy and the overwhelming majority, I think, of us here in this Congress who don't. Pluralism in political parties is not a question of how many parties you have, but what the relationships are between them. And it seems to me that the problem of the relationship of political forces in existing socialism is precisely that it is not pluralistic. That is to say, there are no political parties which have an autonomous existence apart from the Communist Party. In other words, in practice, the situation is that you can have as many political parties as you like, provided they all accept the policy and leadership of the Communist Party. That's not pluralism, comrades, but a survival of the politics of the monolith.
I think at this moment in time, we are underestimating the power of imperialism, and particularly of British imperialism in Britain itself. As for the socialist countries, they understand quite well that there are still plenty of tigers around, and they are not paper tigers either, and they know how to deal with them. We shall have this problem in the future. How are we going to deal with these tigers?
If we accept this amendment, then we're refusing to give an answer to the questions which people ask us. To the question of, would we have the right to speak and vote against you if we disagreed with you? Would we, if we opposed what you were doing once we'd put you in, would we have the opportunity and the right to get you out? We'd be dodging all these questions. And I'd say to Comrade Hoffman, it's no good telling people who ask us this question, our answer is, we'll be flexible. People... And we reject this position because we are convinced that at all stages in the process of advance to socialism, we have got to win the support of the people by democratic political struggle and democratic political argument. And accepting the verdict of the people doesn't mean we'll give up the fight. If the verdict were to go against us, then we've got to fight all the harder to win our ideas and to win our policies.
Pluralism, Amendment 1 2, 3. All those in favour of Amendment 1, 2, 3. All those against the amendment 1, 2, 3. Well, comrades, there were 66 for the amendment, and it's been overwhelmingly defeated. Accept the decision. Abstentions.
How do you see it? I mean, do you regard the Tory party as a democratic party that would be allowed to continue and fight another election?
I'm not arguing as to whether they're a democratic party. We're arguing whether they accept the democratic process, and I think the Tories do. And therefore, of course, we would tell them. We spell it out.
I mean,
so long as they accept the democratic process, they will be entitled to function.
And
it's only if they start using...
when did you personally come and accept this view that you're now saying is your sincere view?
I've always held that view for Britain. I've never denied, and I don't even deny it now, that because of historical circumstances, you developed a one-party system in the Soviet Union. But I've always held that the conditions in Britain, always, the possibility of a plurality party exists. But I've got work to do.
A lot of communists haven't held that view.
Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't. If you asked me, I asked you my view.
The committee's waiting. Now, the thing is,
Which particular wall should we line up against, Lauren?
You're lovely. You're just sadists. Yes, come on. Well, I think we'll have to proceed then, yeah.
Perhaps he's only here in spirit.
Right, just to run over what the proposal is. The proposal is that we take it tomorrow morning, that it's moved from the chair, that we're advising you of your right to when the chairman gets up and says, I am moving, to challenge, and to then say that you wish to, whatever you want to do, either, I understand it's to delete all but the first paragraph.
No.
Yes.
to some extent, well, there's
And then-
possible alternative positions.
Yeah, yes, but that's for you to decide in a way. But the point is that you're clear that you have the right to challenge, and if you challenge, then a speaker can come to the rostrum and has a right to speak for 7 minutes. And we clear that with the chair.
Can we ask why you're actually proposing to move this resolution? Formally in that way, without debate. What's the actual political basis of it?
Well, we're saying if you want to push it to a debate.
No, I'm just interested why this committee has accepted that this be moved.
Why is it?
Why are you proposing to push it?
Because the branch wants it.
It's the branch insistence that should be put.
But could you explain it? Sorry, could you just explain one more thing?
The history of this.
Could you just explain one more
Yes.
thing? Why is it then being moved from the chair and not by the branch? Because
Right.
quite clearly, I mean, without
Absolutely.
being overstating the question, when it's moved from the chair in this year of celebration of the 60th anniversary, which I'm sure the comrades don't want to be divorced from, it will carry a certain weight and a certain support, naturally, from the delegation. And I don't think it would be unfair to say that conference wouldn't necessarily be very pleased with people moving reference back at that stage or whatever, or opposing it. And what we're saying is that what is contained in this resolution is not the position of our party as it is now,
Our party does not accept, I don't think that it is the mightiest socialist country, which really lends credence to an idea of a dominant force in an international welded together. I don't think we accept, and I think the events of '68 prove that we don't accept, that the CPSU recognises that other socialist countries have the right or the way to carve out their own socialist future. Now, I don't think that is the position of our party represented in this resolution, but I'm fairly clear that in the first paragraph of this resolution, that is the feelings of our party. And I think if it would be possible to get the chair to move this, and also maybe to send a telegram to the Soviet comrades congratulating them on this situation, then I think, did you
Yes,
get the bit about the telegram? Yeah.
Yes.
Then I think this would fully meet the appreciation of our Congress and our party of the role of the Communist Party, the CPSU. But it doesn't have to eulogise many of the things which we, as a party, have debated out, not in this Congress, but in previous Congresses.
Comrades, can I just make one procedural point? And that point is as follows, that it has been decided by Congress that there will not be a debate on the nature of the socialist countries or on socialist democracy. Now, it seems to me that if we are going to allow, or if this committee is going to allow this resolution to be moved, Congress will be split, there'll be all sorts of procedural arguments, then you'll have the sort of authority of the chairman being undermined, and in fact, I think it could do nothing but damage.
And I would say that in fact that's willful damage imposed by this committee on Congress.
Quite unnecessary, in terms of what
calculated insult to the Congress.
Having to challenge a chair from the floor, it's just outrageous putting it that way.
Just please.
It's much experience to know.
It is a set-up, isn't it?
Look, comrades, we could move that this wasn't debated at all in Congress. I could go in there and I'd get that vote. So enough of this.
Well, let's do it.
I think right from the beginning. Hold on.
Why don't you do it? You're asking the chair to move.
Well, we'll consider
All right,
what we do.
hold on a minute.
You've already considered
I think we ought to take up a
Because we can do a
certain
reference back
attitude
to
that
that.
we don't use the type of language that the comrade there has just employed. Either us of you or you of us. Well, I don't care where you use it, but you don't use it in here, because that's not the way to conduct discussions between comrades. Second, hold on. Hold on, there's been a whole lot of points raised, so let me answer. We're taking it to Congress. You have complained that there's been no discussion on socialist democracy. That was debated in the British Road to Socialism Committee, and that's the arguments you've had there. And as far as the British Road to Socialism debates are concerned, we've simply arranged the timetable. Now, we thought that this particular thing, as there was pressure for having it and against having it, should go into Congress. Now, you have been complaining that there isn't room for debate. Now you're complaining you don't want it debated. Now, I'm not clear at all what your position is.
With respect, that's not the position we're arguing. I mean, what we've said is that if there's going to be a debate, then it should be a properly structured debate with various positions put forward. Quite equally put forward. Now, wait a minute. What you've got here, Irene, is the chairman of the Congress formally moving something, which is obviously not really a debate at all. So that's not. I don't think that point you've just made is really fair. Now, I think what we've got to ask the committee is, was it mindful of the kind of problems it would create in Congress when you propose this resolution with all its implications? And moreover, when you propose that the chairman should move it and not the branch.
This is a change of party policy.
It is not, comrades, it is not a change of party. Now, you revolutionary Democrats, will you let me have me word in? And instead of shouting me down, I've never had a chance to develop my points.
I haven't heard that on the floor.
Hold on. Hold on. That wasn't an insult. That was an appeal to what I take to be your principles of action. Right. Now then, let's carry on. If you look at the resolution, you've challenged it as something which is not in line with party policy. That is not actually the view either of the executive when we looked at the resolutions, nor when it came through to this committee of this committee. Secondly, I'd like to explain why. you notice that right on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, it emphasizes that there are differences regarding policy and practice. That actually clearly states in a resolution, which is in a sense an expression of fraternal solidarity, it still states that our party has had differences about policy and practice with the socialist countries. It's brought out there clearly.
But it doesn't say what they are, though.
Now then, regard to the point just underneath that. Now, some comrades have said that because the Soviet Union has not publicly retracted its position on Czechoslovakia and the intervention, that there has been absolutely no change on that position. Now, what has happened in the international movement is this, that at last June, in the European Conference of Communist Parties, the CPSU, or rather the leader of the CPSU, Brezhnev, publicly bound the party, no other party there did it, to the declaration. And the declaration publicly stated the sovereignty and independence of all parties.
He said
now,
that before 1957. And since June 1976, the doctrine of limited sovereignty, which was enunciated at the time of Czechoslovakian invasion, has been...
Can I make a point of order, Comrade Chairman, please?
Yes.
I think you're not going to solve this in a political debate with these comrades. And at this Congress, if there's been any value and strength in the Congress, it's been the political debate has been out there and not here. What the comrades, as I understand it, are raising a point which is both political and related to procedure. I propose that we've heard what the comrades have put in, opposing our proposal, that we should thank them for putting it in and we should meet as a committee and decide on our position.
It's a procedural question.
That is what
There's been a decision, no discussion.
That is what we
must
do now. And if you don't give us time to do it, we'll be in very great difficulties, and you will too, because of the closed session.
And the fact that, Irene, you had to begin to sort of explain what you were doing politically makes our whole point. That there has been a decision, no debate on the socialist countries, and we've had to get into one to discuss procedure in here.
I bring you the fraternal, warm and combative greetings of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Chile and of all Chilean communists. In particular, I bring you a message of cordial gratitude from Comrade Luis Corvalán, who has not forgotten and will never forget the demonstrations of solidarity with our party and our people which he received during his visit to this country recently.
Yeah, well, I think basically, of course, they're correct that at this stage of the Congress, or rather it'll be at the last stage of the Congress, to have a debate on, after all, what is, quite a major matter, would not send, it would not be a satisfactory ending to what has been a good Congress, I think. I mean, but the point is that we've got to persuade Adelaide to remit. That's the only way we can do it, isn't it?
I don't think we're going to be able to persuade them to remit. If we don't persuade them to remit, what answer do I give when I'm giving the final report to the comrade when he gets up and says, why have you treated our resolution like this and why did you change your mind on it? Now, we can't just say because people didn't want it discussed in Congress, which is what it boils down to. That is not on, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's
it really isn't.
That is not true. They didn't say they didn't want it discussed in Congress. They said if it was to be discussed in Congress, then you should have an adequate debate on it along the lines of an hour's debate. That's what they're saying.
No, they were actually, that's what they said, but what it boiled down to, and this came quite clearly out at the end, they were complaining that it hadn't been taken in the British Road to Socialism discussion. Now, that's not the responsibility of this committee. And therefore, they don't want it discussed at all. I mean, their real position, the real proposition they're making is that it shouldn't be discussed at all. That's what they're really saying.
They're saying remit it without the others.
I think we have to consider, would Congress accept that there are a number of parts of that resolution that are in conflict with party policy from the point of view of what Congress delegates would think, that some are vague or ambiguous, and that if that is the case, that we would need more time than we're suggesting can be allowed for that resolution. On those grounds, we would argue that it needs to be remitted.
I think if
my way of thinking, that if we remit it, we're not actually rejecting it. So that people from Adelaide, it's a policy discussion. The people from Adelaide should be reasoned with and taken in that way. We should, I think, send a telegram to the Soviet Union, and I think that will cover the point that originally we were told that this is why we want it in as a congratulatory measure. I think that would cover that point, and it would be the best way of getting out of this. Otherwise, we're going to have a substantial vote against it, and it's going to look as if there is a division in the party, and that's going to look worse than if we remit it and send off a telegram.
Well, I think let's put, you know,
we remitted everything about which there was a political disagreement. Nothing would get passed at Congress. Well, that point of view is quite clear, and in my opinion, it should be put to the Congress, and if they want to vote against it, let them bloody vote against it.
And also, I agree with the point that, in my view, this is party's policy, and why should it be remitted, especially after it's come to us with a recommendation of accept from the executive, and we've decided accept, and then, you know, I don't really see the adequate reasons for rejecting it. Right, all those in favour of taking the resolution in Congress, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3. Abstentions?
I'm sorry, I really voted for the original thing.
So it's
So, yes. So we actually take it in Congress.
So I thought with you, you'd have reckoned it.
Yeah, but though it's tomorrow, I think she might well announce it this afternoon. How they're going to handle it. It could well be we look to changing it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can challenge the procedure.
I think the answer to challenge the procedure and say that, you know, it's a problematic motion and it's just unreasonable and it should be pushed through on
And it's unfair because it will divide Congress.
She'll be moving the vote on how we handle it there, you see, so we need, it could well be like that, so we need to...
It was necessary to make crystal clear just where our party stands on the many crucial issues involved in the struggles which lie ahead of the British working class, ahead of the British people.
Winding up the debate on the new manifesto for the leadership was Chris Myant, deputy editor of the Morning Star.
Democratic alliance, the definition of the working class, the plurality of parties, the nature of the attack on monopoly power in the media. These are things to which we must have answers to lay before the people of our country, to lay before the labour movement and the working class as a whole. This debate has not just been a replay of a stale Pinewood epic. The battle to get understanding on the fundamental issues of theory, the questions of policy, the component parts of our programme, understanding within the party and without, that battle is a continuous one. Not only that, but it was necessary at this Congress to defeat the sectarian challenge conclusively. Of course we need to go further, and anyone who has taken part in the discussions preceding and during Congress can see that we have gone further, very much further. The discussion on the draft has certainly been the richest that I have heard at any Communist Congress. It and the many amendments remitted to the new executive for use in preparing the final draft of the programme will lead to a better, greatly improved version of the British Road. There can be no doubt at all about that. Take our programme and policies out to the industrial workers, to the women, to the black people, to the students, to the pensioners, to those fighting for their national rights, to all those hit by the crisis and beginning to fight back against it. Do that, and they will see why the British people need a Communist Party and why we propose this British road to socialism. Thank you.
We are suggesting that for the branch resolutions to be taken tomorrow should be direct labour, common market, peace, pensions, devolution, abortion, inner party democracy, childcare, and to be moved by the Chair, Resolution 72 and emergency resolutions on Bangladesh and on Guyana.
Richard's Welsh Committee. I'd like to challenge the report. I'd like to challenge the report on the question of Resolution 72. The resolution from the Adelaide branch, which is intended to be moved in this Congress through the Chair. I sincerely believe that the whole Congress wants to send its warmest fraternal greetings to our brother party, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. However, comrades, I would maintain that this Resolution 72 is controversial, in many parts unacceptable to the line of our party. Further to this, I would argue that this is not the place in our Congress to debate out this question. The proper place should have been to debate this was in the British Road debate on socialist democracy. Now, I want to really underline, maybe comrades wouldn't automatically question my sincerity, but I don't want to find myself, and I know many other delegates wouldn't want to find themselves in a position of antagonism against the chair, against the leadership, against the whole overwhelming majority of our party, because I sincerely believe that I share the views of Mick McGahey, the views of the leadership, the views of this Congress, the views of the party as a majority on these questions. I would argue then that instead of this resolution going forward, we would send a telegram to the Soviet comrades drawn up on the first paragraph of this resolution. I want to see these fraternal greetings sent, but I don't want it to be seen as a retraction in any way from our position on this question. Thank you very much.
Perry Bar branch. If we are to have a debate on reference back, can we have one speaker for and one speaker against, or else one speaker for reference back and a reply from the committee chairman?
No. Point of order, Comrade Chip. Comrade Chip. Mr. Chairman, I would like to name a number of questions. Comrade Chairman. That's assuming that the challenge to the report is on the same question. Comrade Chairman, I'm sorry, no. That's assuming that the challenge is on the same question, Comrade Chairman. The challenge...
I'm willing to know that the Congress has stated the procedure. Please reply.
The reference back pointed out to you quite correctly that Congress had decided not to debate the question of socialist democracy in the British Road to Socialism debates. That is correct. But then he went on to make the false assertion, I don't mean he was wanting to mislead, but in my view false, that this resolution before us is about the question of socialist democracy. As such, comrades, if we were wanting to put forward the topic of socialist democracy for debate, this would not be the resolution we would put to you. That resolution is down as a resolution on the 60th anniversary of the October Revolution. Comrades, whatever reservations and criticisms we may have of particular policies and practices, are we going to let this Congress go by on the 60th anniversary without marking that historic event? Therefore, I put it to you, comrades, that you accept the recommendations of our committee and that Resolution 72 is put to you tomorrow.
Reference back. All those in favour of the reference back, please indicate. Thank you. You can't have a point of order when a vote has been taken, comrade. Comrade! Comrade! All those against the reference back, please show. Reference back has been overwhelmingly defeated. I know this comrade had a special point about industrial democracy.
Comrade Chairman. The question of public ownership won't be taken tomorrow, so that's the decision of Congress. But could I seek your guidance, Comrade Chairman, as to whether or not the resolution that now apparently is to be put to as 72, will delegates have the opportunity to challenge that resolution tomorrow? Is it being proposed for debate or simply to be moved?
It's to be moved, and a delegate can vote against it if he so desires.
What I'm seeking guidance on, comrade, is can delegates come and speak and oppose the resolution if they wish?
Move from the chair, and the delegate can vote against it if he so desires when they put it to the vote. Right, comrade.
Then you've got this message to CPSU. Can you imagine a Central Committee meeting? Right, Central Committee meeting, message from the British Party, don't worry about the Eurocommunists, we're with you. That's what it says. It'll be printed verbatim in Pravda. Soviet Party doesn't have to worry about the Communist Party of Great Britain, of course. We acknowledge you are the mighty Soviet Union, head of the Socialist Party. That's quite right.
And I think I don't know, some people said to me they think they're just chucking out a bone to those who've been sort of defeated throughout the Congress. And in that sense, the way they responded to, the way the resolution was put by Irene and the fact that it was going to be put, the way that delegates themselves responded.
And it actually falls into line with the whole policy and our whole actions on the Soviet Union this year. Start to finish.
Oh yeah, this whole question of the invitation of Tereshkova and the fact that they send somebody of that calibre and level from the Politburo, and that they send Kunaev, and the fact that we've had the split, we've got the sort of pro-Soviet split, and the Soviet Union is trying to indicate that it's quite happy with the way things are going, and we are responding back to that, as you've said, with the pamphlet and all the rest.
What was interesting was when the two Soviet professors, one was that was Professor Krasin, came to the Communist University. With absolutely nothing to do with it. But it was interesting, because he's the expert on Eurocommunism, you see, in the CPSU.
With Krasin?
Yeah, and I said to him, so he went around the parties to see what he thought, and he said, what about the Italian party? He said, very, very serious party. He says, I've been in Italy, and I've heard them, I've seen them work, very serious party. I said, the French, he said, flash. Very flash. He said, liable to make very, very controversial statements, but he says the actual transformation doesn't run deep.
No, that's right.
And he says, I said, what about the Spanish?
Still a rigid party.
I said, what about the Spanish party? He just threw his arms up in horror. He says, we just don't understand the Spanish party. They're a total
They're the ones
mystery
who've done it, yeah. Because they've really done it.
They're a total mystery to us. And he said, what about your party? I said, what about our party? He says, well, we think that Gordon, as I say, Gordon McLennan's very responsible, because obviously Gordon had been like a Guardian editorial. On the one hand, we support him, on the other, of course.
Yeah, very balanced view.
Yeah, very balanced view.
But gone are now all those joys forever, like bubbles bursting on yonder river. Farewell, farewell to thy sparkling fountain, thy waving wood, and high
As comrades are aware, we have expressed and given our estimate of the impact of the October Revolution in terms of the life of the Soviet people and its effect on a world scale. The relations between the Communist Party of Great Britain and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union have, despite certain little differences on some questions, always been characterized by the warm, fraternal character, and we are confident that that warm, fraternal relationships between our two parties will continue in the future. It's in this spirit I'd ask this Congress to pass this resolution and support the Resolution 72, warmly congratulating, expressing our warm fraternal greetings to the Soviet people and to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union on the 60th anniversary of that historic event, the Great Russian Revolution of 1917. I move. Comrades agree to vote.
Could I ask a question before the vote is taken?
A question?
Yeah. Before the vote is taken, I would like to ask the Chair to reassure this Congress that this resolution does not represent a policy statement on the Soviet Union, except insofar as it represents a celebration of the 60th anniversary. I would like an assurance that this resolution does not in any way reverse previous party policies on the Soviet Union and other socialist countries.
This was a statement on behalf of this Congress on the 60th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. Congress agree to vote. All in favour of the resolution, please indicate. Thank you. Any against? Ten against. Any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 abstentions. The resolution is overwhelmingly carried. Thank you, comrades. I now turn to the next resolution, resolution number 116 on pensions, to be moved by Mary Betteridge on behalf of the Executive Committee.
I mean, that's what was passed at Congress, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the hassle was such we never got round to asking the Adelaide branchman if he would delete family and put socialist countries.
I don't think he would have agreed to it.
I don't know whether he's hit. Well, it's done now anyway, because, yes, that would have. Yeah. So pop down and tell Paul. That's Olive on the press desk.
I ask comrades now that the arguments have taken place and the votes on the major issues are recorded to endorse this final report of this committee you entrusted to enable Congress to finalise the discussion and debate and to vote for the resolution I have just read out. We are proposing so that the British Road to Socialism in 1977 is produced as quickly as possible on the basis of the views of the overwhelming majority of Congress, culminating the most widespread and democratic debate ever held either by our party or any other political party or organization in this country. I move.
You've heard the final report of the British Road to Socialism Committee and the resolution from that committee, Congress document number 3B, which included the characterisation of amendments not debated. All them in favour of that resolution and the adoption of the final report, please indicate. Thank you, comrades. Any against? There's a vote being taken. Will the comrades count the votes again?
About 20.
29, 28. 29 against. Are there any abstentions?
The lowest vote yet.
4 abstentions. The motion and the adoption of the final report has been overwhelmingly accepted by the Congress, 29 votes against, 4 abstentions.
The 35th Congress ended up endorsing the British Road to Socialism draft with amendments.
Let's give it a standing ovation. Let's give it a standing ovation. Come on.
The programme committed the British Party to a revolution without civil war through a series of communist-backed left governments supported by alliances with other groups. It also stated that future socialist governments would stand down if defeated at the polls.
Then comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The International unites the human race. Then comrades, come rally, and the last fight let us face. The International unites the human race.
The leadership had won all of its votes except one, critical of the Morning Star. That was the first such defeat in 20 years.
Members of the executive gather around Comrade Michael McGahey for a photograph for the Morning Star.
The amended version of the programme was written by George Matthews, who had chaired the original drafting commission. It was published in March 1978.
Be better if you chat amongst yourselves a bit.
Right, very good. Look relaxed.
No?
You go for the
You're taking the day off.
it is still not 1 o'clock, and Congress has not officially finished to our timetable. So can we take any more decisions? First time it's ever happened.
I think we ought to take a decision to recommend to the new EC that they don't have another party congress for the next 20 years.